Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's video 44 coming at you with another video. Today I want to address the Kyrie Irving conversation that I had yesterday. I made a video this morning, fresh out of bed, and I got it out, and I listened to it, and I misspoke in some very key areas, so I want to kind of redo that video. Um, Basically, yesterday I got up here and reported to you guys that Nick Wright had tweeted out that Kyrie and his representatives were intending to have him retire, or he was intending to retire if he was traded anywhere. Uh, and I made a video essentially saying that I thought that was a mistake. He's squandering an opportunity by trying to stranglehold the Nets. It can get him blackballed, etc., etc. I referenced guys like Allen Iverson and Carmelo Anthony who had some trouble in this league. Luckily, Carmelo was able to bounce back and get with the team and stay in the league. Allen Iverson kind of had some issues because of how he handled certain things when he got to Denver. They made it hard for him to get other jobs, stuff like that. Tried to kick him out the league, didn't give him the props that he deserved in the way that he should have got it. I just don't want to see that happen to Kyrie Irving. And I felt like him releasing this information, or allowing this information to be released, or letting this be public information to be released, however best that is to be worded, I thought was harmful. I thought it was something that seemed anti-strategic. It felt like a amateur move, a negotiation move. It's like you're making things very difficult for yourself, even though you're intending to not. And I just didn't think that bode along with my theory about how Kyrie Irving has done things in the past, particularly leaving Cleveland. My thoughts about him leaving Cleveland was that he was not trying to leave LeBron James. You know what I mean? It wasn't. It had very little to do with LeBron James, as far as I could tell. What it looked like to me was he was trying to leave before LeBron James left, because he got whiff of the fact that LeBron James was leaving, and he was going to be left on a bad Cleveland team trying to play for a contract. He would rather not be in Cleveland without LeBron James. He certainly didn't want to sign an extension there without LeBron James. So it would be best for him to get the hell out of there before LeBron James. That was my theory. Still my theory. Even in the midst of all the other narratives that are out there about him and LeBron not getting along, I still stand by that. I really believe that's what the tea leaves showed me. Still do. If LeBron James would have stayed in Cleveland, I think he would have stayed in Cleveland. If LeBron James said, I'm going to be here for another 10 years, I don't think Kyrie Irving would have left. I think he would have signed a max. But because he was going to be left in a bad Cleveland situation, he had already been in a bad Cleveland situation. He was drafted into a bad Cleveland situation. He was here for some of them bad days. He didn't want to go back to that. That was my thinking. That didn't go along with the idea that he would allow this information to be released, or even allow this type of thing to be public in any way. Now, whether or not he would be willing to do such a move like this behind the scenes as it pertains to trying to keep himself in Brooklyn, well, maybe. People do a lot of things behind the scenes. As long as it's done behind the scenes, it can be managed. But once it becomes public, it affects public perception, and that can be seen as an attack. That can be seen as being playing dirty. Once the public perception becomes a thing, then there's posturing, then there's PR stuff that has to come, then there's moves that have to be made, then there's other things that are affected in other places because of the different ways that negotiations go. Now it affects business elsewhere, essentially, in theory. I don't think Kyrie Irving's representatives or Kyrie Irving move in a way that would do that, because I don't think that helps them. And my thing was, why are you squandering this opportunity? Why are you giving them ammunition to blackball you? Why are you putting yourself in a position to stay with the Brooklyn Nets, when it seems to me that the only way they would be confident that trading you was the right move is if they got okay from KD and James Harden? That's something I don't think they would even think about doing if those guys weren't okay with it. So why in the world would you stranglehold yourself in that situation if they're fielding calls to trade you, and it's your brothers who are giving an okay to do it? Now, that would all be in theory, of course. But that was my point yesterday. Today, it's been reported by Nick Wright himself, and the tweet came out and all kinds of stuff that made it so that some of the things that I said yesterday don't necessarily apply. They don't apply because I was responding to the fact that I thought that his representatives were releasing this information to Nick Wright, or allowed this information to be public for Nick Wright to receive, obtain, share with the world. I felt that was dirty, and so on and so forth. Kyrie Irving released a meme yesterday after Nick Wright released a tweet with the information. And the tweet, the meme was essentially, had no caption at all, and it was a wooden doll attached to strings, Godfather style. And, what I took from that was essentially, I can interpret that saying that he's calling Nick Wright a puppet, but that part is not clear to me. I don't know exactly what he's saying there, but what it does seem to me is that he's not happy with that information being released, which changes things for me. Because it's two different things going on when you release information in regards to wanting to be, stuck in one spot saying, yo, I'm not leaving. Even though I don't have a no trade clause, you're going to do what I tell you to do. And if you don't, I'm going to make it so that I have no value. Like, that's a move in and of itself. Everybody's going to know I have no value. As opposed to, okay, now the owners and the groups behind the scenes, this information is for you to understand. If you trade me there, once I get there, I'm going to disappoint the team that I'm traded to, thus making you look crazy after the fact. You understand what I'm saying? As opposed to preventing the deal from ever happening. You see? There's two very different outcomes based on whether or not this information is intended to be public or not. I was talking as if I thought it was intended to be public, because that's what was out there. I turned on the camera as soon as Nick Wright's tweet was available for me to see. And then those other tweets came. Kyrie's meme, and then Nick Wright proceeded to respond to the meme by saying something along the lines, I'll paraphrase and say, you and I both know your representatives are going around telling people this. Don't act like what I'm saying to the world isn't true. Completely paraphrasing, but that's what I took from Nick Wright's response to the meme. So I'm on camera talking while all that's going on. I didn't know that was happening. That would have changed a few of the things, but most of all, I just wanted to get on here and try to express the fact that I felt that Kyrie Irving was squandering an opportunity, and I thought it was very important that young people don't do that when they're athletic and they have an opportunity in the NBA or NFL or whatever professional league allows you to display your talent. You only have a short window to do this physical activity. Eventually your body's going to break down, et cetera, et cetera. You do not want to put yourself in a position to not leave on your own terms, especially on some emotional stuff. And that's what I was concerned with in regards to not only this particular situation, but several others that have come about in this free agency period. And so that was my intention. Just get up here and just say, look, don't squander it, man. And you guys can go back and watch that video. You see what I'm saying. A lot of what I said still very much applies. But maybe not necessarily to Kyrie Irving in his specific situation here. But it was a motivational point for me to draw from. And I'm happy that I did, because I think I left some good things out there for some to draw from. Now, going forward, as far as Kyrie Irving's situation, now that it's clear to me that he wasn't happy that this was released, I don't necessarily have a problem with him doing this behind the scenes, because a lot of stuff is done behind the scenes. A lot of different strategies are used that are not made public, you know what I mean, to keep things in place. There's all kinds of stuff going on. So he's not the only one playing like that. You see what I'm saying? He's in an ecosystem that works that way. So long as stuff doesn't become public, you know what I mean, then it's like, now you're playing dirty. As long as he's doing it in the battlefield, basically, away from us, whatever's going on behind the scene to make things happen, it's just that. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying what he's doing or what he's perceived to be doing, alleged, whatever the word would be, is right. What I'm saying is, when in Rome, do as Romans do. And we know damn well that people play dirty. We know. I think at the end of the day, my hope is that Kyrie Irving chooses the game. I also wasn't aware until this morning that Kyrie Irving and James Harden were leading a workout with the Brooklyn Nets here in Los Angeles. At the same time all this was happening, they were sweating and giving their all to the game. And that was mostly also a good portion of what I was saying is that I felt like KD and James Harden were too cool of people or too real of friends to him to put themselves in their situation first and say, look, can you choose us? I know you got other stuff going on, but we all in this together trying to play. Can you be here consistently instead of whatever other things? And my thing was also, I felt like, now mind you, just to get there, stay in that point, that didn't necessarily have to be the case. And of course they were all together, so that makes what I was saying null and void. But what I was also saying, to segue somewhere else, is I feel like Kyrie Irving has already a reputation of somebody who didn't necessarily get along. People, all of that report stuff may be true, may not be true, but the perception's out there. I think it would be best for him to just kind of get out there and say something, Maybe leave a little caption up saying, I want to end my career in Brooklyn, my journey in basketball. This is where I started. The same type of stuff he said when he first got to Brooklyn. Maybe it's best to kind of follow that up with saying, this is where I've always dreamed my journey would end. Something like that. That way it doesn't look as if you're doing something to others, but more so just trying to live out your dream. It's a different perception. It's something that people can root for and get behind, and I'm sure PR teams are already trying to maneuver that. But at the end of the day, that's kind of where I was coming from. It's just, what are you allowing yourself to be seen as? What are you attaching your name to? Are you allowing your representatives to worsen your situation by moving emotionally instead of strategically? That was one thing. So it's just a lot of different points that came together that made this a perfect conversation piece, if anything. So yeah, man, that's kind of what I wanted to get up here and say. I just want to kind of amend that to a degree and just basically get up here and say, yo, everything I said, I stand by. It doesn't necessarily mean it applies to Kyrie specifically. It may not. And a lot of what I said yesterday would have been amended some if I knew it wasn't intended for all this to come out. So yeah, I'm sure there's another point. That's why I'm stalling here. It was something else that I wanted to say. It's not coming to mind. But I do wish everyone well as regards to this situation. My intention is to never belittle someone's value with my words or influence someone's circumstances, because I'm not involved, ain't got nothing to do with me. That's not my place. I'm just a fan, and I know that place. But at the same time, I have a unique way of looking at certain things. I've looked around, and I don't see people kind of approaching in the NBA conversation at the angle that I am. So I think I bring something unique enough, and I'll continue to do that. But at the end of the day, I always look at myself as somebody who's flawed and somebody who can grow through those flaws and will look to going forward. So when there's something to amend, I'm always willing to. Now, will my mind allow me to go double back like I did here all the time? Nah, I'm going to forget I made mistakes, maybe not even pick up on those mistakes. But the display going forward is that you understand I'm willing to amend whatever needs to be amended to make things right. And if I don't have any intention to offend, I'm certainly going to make that known as well, which I didn't. No intention at all. So, yeah, man, I hate the fact that other point won't come to mind. Maybe it's not meant to. But at the end of the day, I wish everybody well. I'm a Laker fan, so I definitely am not rooting for the Brooklyn Nets, but I do want them to have a healthy season. And it's important to say that they, I was intending to tell Kyrie to choose the game of basketball. This is the point. This is the one I was missing. And what I think is the best way to describe what I truly believe is that if you have other things that are more important than basketball in your life that you have to address right now, and you just got to do it. Do it. You just got to work into the equation that it's going to affect your value in the NBA. You got to work that into the equation. If you have other aspects of life that just matter more than the NBA, there's no problem with walking away from the NBA. There's no problem with choosing against it, the NBA. You just can't be in the NBA, standing in the NBA, if you know what I'm trying to describe, and demand your value at cost when you're not bringing forth that value in production or effort or whatever. That's my thing. It was like, you gotta choose the game or not, and live with what comes with that, without complaint and without disturbance. Because at the end of the day, your value is going to be affected by the perception of your effort. If you choose everything but basketball first, people are going to look at you and say that person's not interested in being a professional. They're not interested in winning. They're not helping a team get to the promised land with their best effort. And you don't want that attached to your name if you're a player, especially a player as gifted and as dedicated to his craft as Kyrie Irving has always been. But that is in question. And that's something that I think he can do some good against. He can help himself there. And I think he is, by putting himself in a position to be working out with his brothers while all this madness is going on. You know? And I think that that's all I wanted to see while I was talking, was what was actually happening here in Los Angeles. Him balling with those guys and putting basketball first. As long as they're cool with his effort, his teammates, if they're satisfied with his effort and they're satisfied with what's going on there, that is literally the point. That's all that matters. Because nobody's doing anything without KD and James Harden. As far as the Nets are concerned, they are already strangled. There is no need to tell them I'm going to retire if you trade me, because they ain't going to get there that far. They're not going to get that far. As soon as they do that, they got James Harden's representatives calling them and KD's representatives calling them, asking them what the future is for this team, and trying to figure out whether or not they want to be a part of it. And that is not something Brooklyn wants to be faced with. Nah, they don't even want to go there. So the only way they're going to trade you, as I said in the video yesterday, is if KD and Harden okay it. So if you're strangling holding yourself there, are you sure that's actually where you want to be or where you are wanted? So that was one of my points yesterday. Obviously wouldn't apply if I knew he was working out with them guys at the same time. In theory, just because they're somewhere together doesn't necessarily mean that changes everything, but it does give you information against it, and that's important. So, yeah, man, that's it. Choose the game. Don't choose the game. Straddle the fence and live with your price, which is going to be drastically lower because of it. That was my point. That was the final point that I couldn't seem to figure out. Certain things are more important than basketball, and you have to throw yourself at it. If you changing the world in some miraculous way through your efforts and through your influence, and it requires you stay away from basketball. Stay away from basketball. And just know that when negotiations come around, you have to absorb the loss. And that's okay. We got to stand firm in a space where we can live with losses as it pertains to certain sacrifices. Just like you sacrifice for the game, sometimes you have to sacrifice for life. But that you sacrifice is what it is. You have to let go of that value. You have to say, nope, that's going to cost me $30 million. That's going to cost me $40 million. That's going to cost me my spot on the team if another guy who's more reliable becomes available. That's part of the loss column. That's part of the sacrifice column. You see what I'm saying? And it seemed to me that Kyrie wasn't quite through that perceived move, which is proven not necessarily that. Through my perception of what it was, it looked like he was doing that. And that was something I felt was a mistake. Can't have your cake and eat it too. You gotta give up something. So that was it. That's the whole point. I thank you guys for sticking with me. I wanted to amend that. I think this video, hopefully it comes out better than the one I'm going to delete. But at the end of the day, I got everything out here. I appreciate y'all. My name is BDF44, and I'm out.